What's going on, guys? Belair here. Today's video is going to be a North American mock offseason. We already know that this offseason is going to be crazy. Almost every roster is going to shuffle around as they try and chase G2 at the top of North America. There's already some duos who have kind of come together and formed. So who's going to be the third for Firstkiller and LJ? Where is AJ going to land, and kind of breaking down what some of the rosters could potentially be heading into next season. So without further ado, let's get right into it. All right, let's get into it. North American mock off season. I'm doing this before whatever intro I'm going to do before this, so just a couple caveats. This is not a realism exercise, right? I'm not breaking any news here. This is not the teams that we're going to be seeing next season. This is an exercise in fun. It's a mental it's mental gymnastics. No, that's not the right term. That makes it seem like I'm trying to. It's just a thought exercise. There's what we're looking for. It's just a thought exercise on what some of the combinations and teams could be going into next season from North America. Of course, one thing that we don't know is any transfers that could be coming in or out. I feel like most of the players on this list are probably going to be staying within North America, but again, who knows? I think Lawler has just reported recently, we're already getting into the weeds. Lawler had reported that GK Esports might be interested in, North American or a European prospect. Let's table that and leave it there. But this is probably the players that we're going to be keeping. We have no idea who's going to be coming in. I have removed Jack, Nas, and Jorius from this list. I think they're gone. We also saw Achilles break that Complexity are going to be coming over, so we already know that they're one of our teams. And yeah, I think that's all of the thought exercises. So are you guys impressed by my graphic design skills? Thank you very much. All right, so there's some of these that we already know. Oh, and one other caveat as I'm moving these over. I tried to not keep any rosters pat, right? I don't want to just say, oh, Luminosity Gaming, we basically know that they're going to run it back. They've said so. I'm breaking them up for the purposes of this exercise, in fairness to everybody, in fairness to the exercise, because that's what it is. No more than two teammates are allowed to stick together. So, for example, here we already know FK and LJ are reportedly a duo heading into next season. Two Piece and Parth. Justin is not here as an example. So we're only keeping two, if not breaking up groups altogether. And let's just put some of these people into place, right? Now, I haven't figured out how I'm going to do this. So do I want to just reveal them one by one? Do I want to kind of cobble them together slowly? I think we're going to find our footing as we go, guys. So to that point that I had made right here about how Rles and the rest of former Luminosity, aka RMC, where we currently have Rles and Cheese and Magicbear. For the purposes of this exercise, I'm going to be breaking this team up. I'm excited for them. I hope that they run it back. I'm not on my mouse. I'm just using a trackpad as I move to the other room for the recording purposes. But yeah, on this one, we're actually going to be breaking up Magicbear and putting him onto his own team. So now that we've kind of showed you the structure of this, let's start plugging in some of these gaps. Okay, of course, the first thing that we're going to do is delete the fact that we have missed listed twice. And we're just going to do what I think is a pretty obvious one here and put Panda in as the third for, no, I'm just kidding. Panda's probably certainly not going to be the third to round out that roster. I'm actually going to leave this one. Keep you on the edge of your seats. I can't fill that in. Then you'll click off of the video and you're not going to get to the end where I thank you for your time in watching today's video. So we'll circle back there. Let's go ahead and complete one of these rosters though. Two Piece and Parth in this scenario are looking for a new third, And you know what? I have the perfect person to round out this roster. Not only did I tweet a couple of days ago, guys, you're missing all of my spicy findings and fun tweets if you're not following me at belleairballer on Twitter. But I had tweeted as soon as the announcement was made that Jack said that he was open to looking for new rosters. Genji allowed him to explore opportunities, and Firstkiller said the same. Surprisingly, Chronic did not put out the same thing. So seemingly they're going to be rebuilding around him. Um, I was looking on ball chasing and saw that Two Piece just so happened to be queuing several games of twos in different, not like back to back, but on separate days with Chronic. Wouldn't that be crazy if the randoms teammates came back together? And if you're gonna get a third to go along with them, is they're kind of refinding their footing, getting the band back together, as it were. Two Piece has played a ton of games with Parth. They know that roster very well. Like, it's much easier to get one person into your ecosystem as opposed to totally building from scratch. So I think this move makes a lot of sense to me. We know that Chronic and Parth have definitely at least played together a little bit, or got to know each other a little bit, just based on twos tournaments alone. So this roster makes a lot of sense to me. I could see this potentially happening. Quick sip of water. Um, I think this team would do quite a few things. A, it would give Chronic kind of the lift within the North American region that I think he deserves. He's the third fiddle to Jack, just because Jack is Jack, and Firstkiller just because of the skill that he provides to the team. Chronic is kind of the third banana for that roster. You could argue the same previously, right? Even though Chronic clearly like outshined as a savant on the ball, like a technical mechanical wizard, with the Genji roster that had Noly on it. Noly was still Noly. He still is a great player, but the pecking order wasn't quite as clear. They were more an amalgamation with Jack clearly leading the pack. And this year, I feel like Chronic has pretty decidedly fallen to the third option. This would be an opportunity for him to be arguably second best on the team, depending on how you value Two Piece, or possibly the best option on the team, just kind of in how they find themselves. So that's a career progression that I like quite a bit for Chronic. And also, this really revamps the current Shopify duo. Justin is going to move to a new home for the purposes of this exercise, and gives them that extra step of firepower for them to try and do what they've been doing for several seasons, which is finally break into kind of the LAN environment. All right, Rles and Cheese are looking for a new third here, and I feel like that's a roster where what Rles has been able to do for Magicbear, and what he's been able to do for Cheese, what he did for Daniel, kind of instill a level of confidence, and in these younger players, and allow them to develop under his wing. He's like the savvy vet that every rook in the NBA wants to have. That Rles is in your corner. He's going to take the blows. He is going to lead by example. I think he has the capacity to take a young talent and kind of mold them into something greater. A player that we have been seeing crop up quite a bit, especially it kind of started on my radar last off season, and somebody who has continued to develop, and I think brings a lot of the qualities that you would want from a player who is trying to improve and eventually make it to a LAN stage, is Wavy. That would be a really fun roster, in my opinion. I do think it would allow Cheese the opportunity to kind of become the first option for this team. Wavy is kind of this off ball player who can score a little bit, can pass a little bit, pretty solid in the midfield as well. Still looking to kind of find what his elite skill is, but he could definitely develop on this roster. And furthermore, Rles kind of as a player who continues to, I think, stay a lot higher up the mechanical ladder than a lot of people give him credit for. You definitely don't see you definitely see, some difference between him and the Frosties and the Stizzies of the world. Just looking at my board here, these kind of new young players who have the full bag of tricks, but Rles has not kind of fallen back to rely on refining, old qualities. Like I feel like Noly has taken a little bit of a dip that direction. His teammate JKnaps, I feel like Chicago kind of falls in that category as well. Garrett G, and another obvious one, who don't really have the full technical tool bag that you would associate. I think Rles is kind of suspended in between those two groups. He's definitely not hyper mechy, but he definitely is not kind of at Unk status here as far as the mechanics go. That's probably the first and hopefully only time I ever have that term actually come out of my mouth. I see it online all the time. I'm an Unk. I don't know if you guys know this. I am a. I'm not even gonna make that joke. All right. Um, this one I'm not as crazy about. I was really proud of this one. I gave myself a little yeah. I was like, that's a good roster. There's some detective work mixed in there. It makes sense historically. I think it makes sense on paper. The other thing that we did not say so far is all of this could be completely nonsensical based on what we've seen a lot of orgs and their reps kind of come out and say, um, wherein it seems like orgs are definitely going to be giving a haircut to kind of the money that they're dishing out to these rosters. So does this make sense as far as paychecks go and buyouts from Shopify and yada yada yada? I don't know. I have no idea. But again, thought exercise. Okay, this one I was also really excited about. If I had to put like AJ as this kind of, where do you square him in? He definitely had a downward season for M80, and it was supposed to kind of be, a resurgence. But we saw Nas kind of come into his own. Jorius had an excellent offseason. Both of them looked really great at EWC, and then, seemingly they're both kind of have their stock going up. And M80 had the season that we all knew that they had. Let me put the water down. What do you make of AJ at this point? The man who just got Botox injected into his hands to prepare for this season. Well, I think what AJ brings to the table is experience, and he is definitely a player who is well respected, has been around a long time, and is about as high as you can go, being at his age and how long he's been around the scene with the high level mechs, the quick recoveries, the chain dashes, all the different dashes that you could want into the arsenal, all the stuff aerially that you would want from a player. AJ is pretty far up there as far as athleticism goes, if we want to use a traditional sports term. And I think he would fit really well into a young roster who likes to go fast and are just looking to add that additional edge of veteranship that will give them a sense of, will give them this feeling of like we can actually contend with the bigger teams. There's one team in mind who already started to eclipse that margin towards the end of last season, and that is the Snowmen. How awesome would it be if the Snowmen kind of came back and all they did was add AJ as this kind of like, oh man, and now we got AJ chip on his shoulder, kind of wanting to find his way back up to the top ranks of North America. This roster would get me super excited. I don't know if it's going to happen, of course, but again, that's kind of what we're doing here. All right, let's get a couple more duos on the board here. Why don't we? Let me cite my notes. Actually, let's leave Chicago for a second. We're going to put Noly right here. We're going to put JKnaps right here. And what else do we got? my notebook is just a mess. Let's put Garrett here, and we'll put Mist here. Let's put Mist here. Isn't that? Whoa. Belleair, you're keeping us on our toes. I thought you were going to put Mist right here. No, no, no. He's going right there. We're going to keep Andy, and we're going to keep 5UP on a roster together. And let's pause there, why don't we? I think we just saw someone who I doubted pretty heavily heading into the World Championship in Chicago, who had an excellent event. I was way off on what I thought he could bring to the table. The Steely resolve, he kind of, when a lot of people might falter a little bit once the lights get real bright, Chicago did not. Is he the kind of player who is going to shine and be, an all NBA first or second or even third team player during the regular season? No, but I do think that he still is a pretty valid option for a legit team who are still trying to find, that little inch that they need to contend. There's a roster out there that I think has just historically over the last 5 seasons got a ton of hate, and there's a couple players on this roster who have gotten quite a bit of hate as well. Some of it is very much deserved based on, I'm sure a lot of you listening have already figured this out, based on how topsy-turvy all of their roster moves were last season, based on their very poor results. But I personally am still a believer in the NRG duo. It's been a while since Garrett was on a top team. When I watch him, I still some people are like, Garrett's washed, it's over. I honestly don't totally get that sense from him. Do I think that he's a top 10, top 20 player in North America? Yeah, a top 20 actually. We're probably getting to about where I think Garrett is. So am I gonna lose a lot of sleep over trying to decide whether I'm gonna pick Firstkiller or Garrett? Definitely not. But I do think he has more to offer than what a lot of the anime profile picks that I see on Twitter might say. And Mist is somebody who I just I am a lot higher. We'll say this: I'm a lot higher on Chicago than I am on Toasty, Dries, or Aqua. The Frosty thing, I don't like. I still don't know what happened there. That was a mistake by them to kind of break that trio up. But once they did that, it was just kind of a revolving door that just leads to a weird season. And I wasn't very sold on last season kind of being the final frontier for Mist and Garrett. And something that I've talked about a lot. Maybe it's worth absolutely nothing. And they, regretted this. I don't know what their living situation is now, but at one point, Chicago and Mist were roommates. Get the band back together. Or maybe they still live together. I honestly have no idea. This is some half-baked research, but I feel like that trio could be pretty threatening, honestly. Are they going to be as high as the OG esports of this season? No, but we have seen in North America where there's a will, there's a way. And if you're going to get three heads together who have succeeded in the RLCS previously, and their kind of intention is to keep it going and be competitive, this roster, if nothing else, would be competitive, in my opinion. All right. Sip of water number 2. Stay hydrated. Who else are we going to? Let's fill some of these in here. Who did I have for MB? Oh, that's where I kind of see, I talk a big game and I did this in iterations. This is so stupid. I did this in iterations where I did 10 teams and I was like, I don't like those 10 teams. And then I drew it another time. And so I put one of my round one, draft teams together here. In another world, what I had was Chicago, and you can let me know in the comments below if you like one of these more than the other. Maybe you hate both of them or love both of them. In one iteration, I had Chicago and Hoxer joining forces with Magicbear to kind of be like, hey, this is what we were able to do with LJ to kind of be a duo around him to empower and allow him to thrive. Magicbear, I think, is a player who could just use a change of scenery um, in this hypothetical. If they run it back, awesome. I believe in them. Another season, they could be even better. They were right there last season. It's not like they were down in the dumps. If Magicbear were to find a change of scenery, this would be an excellent duo for him to land alongside. I feel like they could kind of mold around him and be a duo that would keep him impactful. Another way we could go, in staying with the getting the band back together theme, Garrett and Justin realize that they never should have broken up. They still love each other, and they reunite and get back together. That would be a touching story. And you know what? If Garrett and Justin end up on the same roster again, I'll buy every single NRG decal. How's about that? Um, Noly and JKnaps. What about Tawk? We've seen Tawk kind of be the talk of the. I should just end the video now. Be somebody who was highly talked about. I did a full video on him when we got into Shift Summer League. What was the name of that team that they were playing under? It wasn't Friends, but it was something like that, where it was like Smile or Happiness or something silly like that. But that team didn't do super well as far as SSL went. Of course, we had a lot of good competitive teams participating in SSL for North America. But we did see Tawk kind of show his stuff and even getting them to that stage. And I'm just really, really impressed by him. The reason why I think this connection makes sense is because Tawk and JKnaps have played together previously when there was like a Canadian, not World Cup, but there was like a Canadian Cup, and the two of them played together. They actually won the whole thing. And I just feel like JKnaps as a player who can use his knowledge and ability to much to the same way that Chicago and Hoxer would be empowering Magicbear, bring in an injection of young talent to the Noly and JKnaps kind of ecosystem and allow Tawk to thrive while also giving OG Esports a new look. I'm not going to poo-poo at all on the fact that they made both majors and the world championships, but that roster clearly had a ceiling that was placed on them. What did they go 1-3 in worlds, and they did about as equally poorly in the majors that they were a part of. I just think it can get you there. It's like in the NBA. Are you an 82 game team? Like, are you a regular season team, or are you actually built for the playoffs? That team and kind of what they were able to do, OG, that is, grind teams out, just win on small goals, adjust as things went along, win these gritty series. Um, they were very much a like North American team, and they just didn't have the firepower to translate to the international stage. They were slow, lethargic, even, and very counter heavy. Where I just think you need kind of a young, flashy player to suck gravity and put eyes and attention onto a certain player to kind of allow Noly and JKnaps to find their footing. You're not super worried about Nolycom or JKnaps on the ball to like beat you over the totality of a series, but you could be worried about Tawk. So that's a roster that I would be excited about as well. I'm going to shock you guys. Dignitas have announced that they're rebuilding around Stizzy. and we were talking about imports, I think this might be an import team. I would love to get AJG back into the fold, especially as complexity is coming over. This trio has played together previously in some non-RLCS sanctioned tournaments. Stizzy, Dorito, both Spanish. Dorito, of course, I think currently is in Argentina after he got dropped. Well, he's probably back home, honestly. But he was with Complexity, of course. They decided to drop him, pick up Diaz. Dorito, of course, the former teammate of CRR. That trio didn't work out, but this rebuild makes sense. AJG has been over here before, is probably comfortable. And Dorito, the same thing. I feel like if a team is trying to rebuild around Stizzy, you want him in a situation where he's comfortable, where he clearly is the number one option, and also with, you know, this roster would probably be fairly affordable compared to bringing in, you know, Noly or Arsenal or whatever. So that's a roster that I think I might put here. I might actually move them out of here just for a second, just because that kind of makes this exercise a little more boring, leaving all these people on the list here. But I will put them here as kind of a team 11. Of course, the team that is not on this list at all is G2, who probably are not making a move. Let me get rid of Stizzy here. Let's finish out this top roster. I think Com makes so much sense for this duo. Somebody who, in my opinion, and I got some pushback on this when I made the ranking every player ahead of the World Championship. I felt like Com was the best player on OG, and I still think that he like can bring it. And we saw that he was willing to accept a different role once it came to the Beast Mode and Daniel duo. And I felt like he fit them super well. They, of course, go on to win Gamers 8. They make the decision that most would make when they have the opportunity to pick up Atomic to round out their roster. But I felt like Com was still an excellent, excellent third option for a team in Firstkiller and LJ that I think needs a land dog with some experience who is not afraid of the moment. Like, both of those players have kind of been hard capped in their career up to this point. They can't surmount that final hurdle. Firstkiller, of course, in winning a major, and LJ in kind of overcoming that top 8 range that he finds himself in. If you put Firstkiller and LJ with, you know, some kind of unknown generic third player on LAN, I'm not super moved by that duo. But I think if you had somebody who is going to inject them with kind of an enforcer, if you want to use like an old hockey term, kind of vocal, animated, not scared of the moment, will be able to draw the ire of the crowd or you know, whatever away from these two players and just allow them to do what they do. And also, if the two of them kind of tense up in big moments, can find a demo to open up an easy shooting lane for them. Those are two players who I think do best when they are on the ball. And if you are excellent on the ball, the best way to, one of the easiest ways to improve your percentage of effectiveness is to have there be less defenders in your way. So this duo alongside makes so much sense to me. This is actually the first time I thought of this was Big Fan on Twitter. Dano, is he Big Fan RL? I think is his on Twitter. He's the first one who brought this to my attention. I think it makes so much sense. I would love that trio. What are we gonna do with Andy and 5UP? Well, they were with Rles to round out last season. And is that right? Yeah, it was Rles, right? It was Rles. Don't doubt yourself. Although I could be wrong, but it was Rles. But that duo, Andy, a pro, has been around a long time. He's probably just outside. dancing around top 20 in North America. He, of course, has made it to a LAN, which is super impressive. There's not a lot of people on this board right now who can say the same over the last couple of seasons. So kudos to him for being within kind of that context. 5-up, a player who I think has the ability to take another leap. He, of course, went from basically an unknown to kind of being a pretty solid player within a pretty short span of time. Why would he not take an additional leap upwards? I think there's a couple players here that would make sense. Of course, you could think about Evoh. Him and Andy were part of that Dignitas roster who actually made it to a LAN. You, of course, could slot in a player like Creams. We moved Wavy, his teammate, off of him. Creams is a player who I think is pretty excellent offensively and could slot in pretty nicely here. Rles is out just because of the kind of context of the exercise. And, Skippy, someone who is kind of a lane maker, another young player, realize young players that are also exciting in their own rights. Zineel, kind of a young defensive talent. I actually think Arsenal would be pretty solid here. Now, is this kind of where Arsenal will find himself? I don't think this makes a lot of sense. I don't see this roster actually occurring. But if it were to occur for the purposes of the thought exercise, 2 talented veterans who are still looking to stay competitive, flanking 5-up, who is taking another step up. We see this all the time in the NBA, where you get a young player who is clearly going to develop into what is hopefully the cornerstone of one of these organizations. One of the best things you can do for him is surround him with talent that will improve that player. It's exactly what Dignitas are trying to do with Stizzy right now in their offseason. So this would make a ton of sense in that respect. Who else are we going to put in here? You know what? I think we'll kind of keep this trio over here. As you can see, we have kind of reached a place of I don't really know what makes a lot of sense for a lot of these teams. Evoh has been allowed to explore his opportunities. He's played a little bit with Zineel in some offseason tournaments, if memory serves me correctly. That duo would be excellent. You could really take a swing and just say, we're going to just do what, the Charlotte Hornets do, or what the San Antonio Spurs did for a couple of seasons, or the Thunder, or even the Trust the Process Sixers back in the day. We're just going to throw a ton of talent together, throw it against the wall, and see what sticks. So you could go Aqua if you were thinking about that. Where I might go with this duo is actually Rles, a player who has proven himself quite a bit. I thought he was lights out in Shift Summer League, especially at the end of the season, if I remember correctly. I think it was Open Qualifier 6 where they made a top 4 or something ridiculous. And Rles was just the best player on the team by far. So this is another alternative version of putting Aqua in here, in my opinion. And then finally, there's a ton of young talent kind of floating around here. Lion Blaze is a player who I've never really known how to place. Let's space these out a little bit. Let's not cheat and use the new Dignitas roster, in my opinion. Let's kind of move these players up here. I want to build around Creams. This team is not on my board. We're doing this live. Creams has played with Hockey, who I was rude enough to not put on here. Sorry, Hockey. Although I'm not going to put him here. This one's just, we're going to throw this together so we can talk through a couple of players. I had made a video on Skippy 2 months ago now, or something like that. A player who is surprising statistically. He kind of is an old soul in what he does on the pitch. Pretty low in the goal scoring category, a little below to about average in the assist category. Where he really thrives is in boost, steals, and demos. He is kind of this old school player where he is just making life miserable for opposing defenses. And both him and Creams are aficionados of weird car decals. So they would be absolutely horrible to play against because the sound would be deafening between Skippy using the like peace sign, like boost. I can't remember the name of it. And Creams using like an iteration of the old Radosin Finnick, where it has like the Nickelodeon slime boost. This would be just a disgusting team to play against. And who would we like to slot in there? Um, it's a great question. I think that somebody who deserves a shout here are all of these players, but I am going to lock in Rles, another really young player who I think um, deserves a shout out right here. Although I will say, Reveal is a player I've liked as well. And there's another, I don't know where he's going to go. I think he was just in like some off-season tournaments, but is it Repeat? Is that his name? There's another player that I did like a deep dive on. I don't think I ever made a video out of him, but Repeat, if that's his name, maybe I'm just crossing streams here between Reveal and Realize and thinking there's a Repeat out there. Maybe it is one of those two players, but yeah, those are my 10 teams plus a bonus team plus of course G2. What do you guys think? Definitely let me know in the comments below if one of these teams is your favorite. If you have a team that's your least favorite, keep it to yourself. I have a very fragile ego. But jokes aside, guys, would love to hear your opinion on which of these teams you think would do the best. But even if it's not a team you think would do the best, which of these teams would you be most interested in rooting for? I, of course, think if all 10 of these teams were to enter into a tournament, I would choose Team 1 as my best team. But I think the teams that I would want to root for the most would probably be this Team 3 team here. And I was just about to go down the list, and I'll probably name all of them. So if I have to be really specific and choose one more team, I really would love to see. I'd love to see this Team 5, to be honest with you. I think I've been down on all three of these players in the past and kind of talked them down. But I really think that that trio would make a lot of sense. So that's it for the video, guys. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join us here and talk some Rocket League. And until next time, guys, take it easy.